What's up, YouTube? SwooCube here with the long-awaited return of the Battlebox series for Star Wars Unlimited. If you've been following my channel for the last year, you'll remember that I went really deep designing kind of thematic, budget, casual decks for Star Wars Unlimited using various leaders throughout the game that were designed to kind of play well in an intro product starter deck, kind of down-tuned, casual kitchen table power level. The idea was to build, a group of decks that you could kind of keep up on your shelf, and then whenever you wanted to play, you could just pick two and have a good game. This series was a big hit. It really helped grow my channel. I had a ton of fun with it, and honestly, I wish I could keep it going. But the fact of the matter is, I simply have not had the time to play test these decks or design them, and have not had enough product on hand, enough bulk really to build numerous copies of decks each set. So unfortunately, this series has had to take a back burner for me. But other people in the community have certainly created similar type lists of decks themselves. And one person in particular has really, I think, carried the torch much further than I ever did. So what I'm going to do with the future of the series is actually feature decks designed by a guy named Maverick. Now, Maverick reached out to me about a year ago on Discord and started sharing his creations with me in the style of the Battlebox decks that I created. I truly think that his decks have surpassed mine and are the gold standard for this type of gameplay in Star Wars Unlimited, and he's got a lot to share. So with his permission, I am going to create a series of videos covering the decks that he's made to give you all more of this style deck to build and play with. So today, for the first in this video series, we are going to cover Nala Se. Nala Se is a leader from the third set of Star Wars Unlimited, Twilight of the Republic. She plays well with clones. Her ability specifically allows you to play clones off aspect, which kind of gives you that rainbow deck vibe that Hera has. Now, her flip side enables you to heal 2 damage for each clone that's defeated. So she has a good bit of mid-game sustain. The idea here is to flood the board early with a lot of clone units, and then, kind of sustain through the mid game, get to the late game, and win with big fat, stompy bombs. I think Nala Se is a really, really fun deck. She never really saw, I don't think she ever really saw premier success, but provides a really unique playstyle. So that's exactly what we're kind of looking to achieve in this Battlebox series, right? Capture the different flavors of Star Wars Unlimited. Now, the first thing you'll notice here on the right is that TCG Blair link. This deck is $3.50. So the affordability of this deck is out of the park. It's literally the gold standard. You can't get cheaper than this for 50 cards. It is designed entirely with commons and uncommons with a few optional rares. So that price is what you see for the commons and uncommons. Now, Maverick in the decks he's built has some heuristics, which we'll talk about here on the right. First of all, thank you for the shout out, Maverick, designed in the style of SwooCube's Battlebox. Basic rules, right? Decks have to be thematic. They have to be budget oriented, right? So we're going to keep expensive cards or even, marginally, $1, $2 cards in the sideboard. You can decide if you want those or not, or you can just build the commons and uncommons version for pennies on the dollar. These decks need to have a unique playstyle from other decks in the Battlebox, and they should be balanced to match starter decks. Now, a word on balance, right? We're not looking for a perfect 50-50 spread here. Some decks will be a little bit more powerful than others. Some decks will have better matchups than others against various decks in the field. The idea is simply that when you sit down to play between any two decks, you have at least a game, right? You don't want to get completely blown out. You don't want to have no chance. It's got to be a game. Now, other heuristics of the way that Maverick deck builds here. He has included what he calls the core 4 and the common 4. These are cards designed specifically to be 3-ofs in the deck and be very thematic, right? So the cards that show up most often in these decks will feel like they fit in the setting with the leader, with the gameplay of that deck. So core 4 is 4 uncommons. You can think of these as kind of replacements for the starter rarity cards in the 2-player starter sets or the spotlight decks. The core 4 for this deck include, let's see, Jesse, Heavy, Clone Commander Cody, and then down in events, we've got Disruptive Burst, right? These are the cards that kind of capture the vibe and the play style of what this deck is supposed to be going through for the best. There's also a common play sets of cards that are also on theme, maybe not quite as powerful, um, but between the core four and the common four, those are going to be your four sets of three of cards in the deck. So for the common four, we have Soldier of the 501st, just a solid, efficient one drop. We have Clone Heavy Gunner, another efficient coordinate unit. We've got Bactoid Super Droid, nice finisher. And then we have Trident Assault Ship, which is actually a JTL card. Actually, that's a Legend of the Force card, excuse me, but totally on theme. Now, this deck, again, the gameplay of this deck is really designed to be aggressive early. You flood the board with your cheap one drops and two drops. And then over time, once Naliste drops, you kind of sustain until you can hopefully cheat out some of these separatist big units ahead of curve and start really kind of winning on the big unit front. Uh, Maybe tempo mid-range, soft control is the way to describe this deck. Much more heavy in ground units than space units, right? We only have 7 space units, and they're a little bit chunkier. We got some Sentinels, and then the big finishers and Trident Assault Ship and Providence Star Destroyer. Um, this deck is, I think, like the epitome of what I was always trying to achieve with a Battlebox deck. Thematic, affordable, unique playstyle. What I really like about Nalise is she opens you up to the win cons of the Separatist exploit game plan while providing higher quality fodder than what you get in the battle droids, right? Clone units are higher quality units than the battle droid units, so you can be a little bit more aggressive early, be a little bit more flexible in your playstyle. It's really, really fun deck. Couple quick words on the sideboard, right? So these cards are kind of those optional cards that we talked about. Clone Wars allows you to really flood the door with clone troopers. This is, I would say that this should at least be a one of in the deck if you're willing to include rares. Totally could take it up to a two of. Indefensive Camino is another really good one, which just lets you totally like spawn out tons of units and sustain, and you can do some really cool combo turns where you drop this a turn, make 3 or 4 clone units, and then the next turn Indefensive Camino, gain a bunch of life, trade those units into bigger units and create just that many more units. Of course, another cool sideboard card is Clone. This is actually a pretty cheap legendary. I think all 3 of these sideboard cards deserve a slot in the deck, but we're not included just simply for cost considerations, right? You do not need to spend money on these decks to have really, really cool, really great, you know, thematic gameplay. So that's it. I'm going to sign off here. But major thanks to Maverick for designing these decks, and major thanks for him giving me permission to share them with you. I will be back with more. These are pretty easy videos for me to produce and release because, again, I'm not buying the cards. I'm not organizing them. I can kind of record these on the go. So expect a pretty steady flow of these decks in the coming weeks. And I'm very much looking forward to bringing you more content on Star Wars Unlimited. Thanks. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day.